Viewers, earlier this week, Defence Minister Rajnath Singh made a statement that has generated a lot of debate. The Defence Minister said that India is only now just walking north. And he recalled a 1994 parliamentary resolution. Now, viewers, what is this parliamentary resolution? Let me read out for you what it says. It says, on behalf of the people India, we firmly declare that the state of Jammu and Kashmir has been, is and shall be an integral part of India, and any attempts to separate it from the rest of the country will be resisted by all necessary means. Now, this, viewers, is not the part that is exciting debate. India has the will and capacity to firmly counter all designs against its unity, sovereignty and territorial integrity, and demands that even this is not exciting debate. The part that is exciting debate is, viewers, the following. Pakistan must vacate the areas of the Indian state of Jammu and Kashmir which they have occupied through aggression, and resolves that all attempts to interfere with the internal affairs of India will be met resolutely. The resolution adopted, Mr. Speaker, the resolution is unanimously passed February 22nd, 1994. Now, viewers, this is very, very important, because if you listen now clearly to the Defence Minister, you will understand the import of his statement. Let's play out that soundbite.
कि अभी तो हमने इस इलाके के डेवलपमेंट का आगाज भर किया है, अभी तो हमने उत्तर दिशा की ओर चलना प्रारंभ कर दिया है। हमारी यात्रा तो तब पूरी होगी जब हम 22 फरवरी 1949 को भारतीय संसद में सर्वसम्मत पारित हुए प्रस्ताव को अमल में लाएंगे और उसके अनुरूप हम अपने बाकी बचे हिस्से जैसे गिलगिट और बाल्टिस्तान तक पहुंचेंगे।
Now you heard, viewers. The Defence Minister says India will make sure Pakistan pays for its crimes. India has just begun walking north, will complete the journey after reaching Gilgit-Baltistan, will implement the 1994 resolution passed by Parliament. Now, viewers, on a map, I'm going to show you where Gilgit-Baltistan actually is. It is right there on top. Border of China, as well as, of course, the Ladakh part of United Jammu and Kashmir. You can see it, it's right there, it's right, pretty much the northernmost tip of our country. And of course, viewers, just about 2 days ago, Lieutenant General ADS Ojla, GOC Chinar Corps, he came out when he was asked to react to what the Defence Minister said. He said, if order comes to march north, all forces are ready. We are refining our forces' conventional capabilities when it is required. There should be no looking back. Big impetus to our preparedness in just the last 20 months. Viewers, General Ojla has thrown down the gauntlet. He's only waiting for the orders, and he thinks that this is easily attainable. What we resolved in 94 can be delivered. Viewers, this is of course not the first time when India has said that in its efforts to push towards Akhand Bharat, we will reclaim Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. Our Foreign Minister, Mr. S. Jaishankar, had once said, and I'm talking about as recently as September 2019, and I quote him, POK is part of India and we expect one day that we will have physical jurisdiction over it, unquote. Naturally, viewers, all of this coming at a time when Pakistan once again looks extremely enfeebled by another round of political infighting. What is the message here? What is the intent? Is there a gap between the rhetoric and the reality as far as any attempts to reclaim POK is concerned? Let's put this out. I cannot tell you, viewers, that you will not have a fuller perspective from our three guests. Sushant Sareen is with us, General Bakshi, Maroof Raza. None of them need any introduction. Maroof Raza, you know, has been associated with Times now since its launch. He is the total editorial head of the entire network's internal security focus. And General Bakshi served, of course, in Kashmir. He is known for someone who weaves in pragmatism with assertiveness. And of course, Sushant Sareen, who is perhaps today one of India's leading security analysts, as well as, of course, geopolitical experts. So let's open this up. And I want to first begin with General Bakshi, who will bring to bear his experience as a military man. Now, General Bakshi, I understand that sometimes politicians need to make statements which will boost the morale, etc., of the country. But this is not something that is happening in isolation. Over the last few years, whether it has been the Prime Minister or his ministers, these statements have been coming out with quite a bit of regularity. How do you first read and assess our preparedness to even execute such an audacious plan?
The fact of the matter is, I want to tell you a geostrategic precedent. 1962, Russia and the United States were teetering on the brink of a nuclear war. China took advantage of that preoccupation of the world with Cuba to launch an attack on India in October 1962. Because it had that main crisis masked and let China get away with it. Today, there are multiple flashpoints around the globe. There is the Russia-Ukraine war heating up by the day, poised for a major escalation as soon as the autumn rain ends, and Russia's 3 lakh reservists recently mobilized are launched. The Americans are fearing the use of tactical nuclear weapons. They are saying they will counter by conventional strikes. They have sent another aircraft carrier battle group now to the Baltic. We know what is happening in China, Taiwan. Just today, there has been the degree of heat in the Korean peninsula has gone up many notches. North Korea scrambled 180 fighter jets, and in response about 500 jets are flying over the Koreas. So the fact of the matter is that if India were to choose a geostrategic window for carrying out this operation, frankly, as a military analyst, now what will happen or not happen, I am in no position to disclose any kind of military plans, but I'm just talking from the point of view of geopolitical opportunity. You couldn't have had anything better. Number 2 factor. The simple fact is, when Shahbaz Sharif took charge in Pakistan, we had a segment in the Indian establishment that felt, oh, he is Nawaz Sharif's brother. Nawaz Sharif, and we had made outreach to him, which he had reciprocated very well before Musharraf torpedoed that initiative, peace initiative, and torpedoed Nawaz Sharif. Right? So we thought perhaps there is a window to improve relations with Pakistan. But what we have seen on the ground is that the military establishment, the Pakistan military ISI complex, the deep states, calls all the shots. It matters very little who is the political face in Islamabad. It is just a facade, a democratic facade. The Pakistan Army ISI complex rule, and they have been making a concerted effort to push drones across the line of control, drone across the the Punjab border, dropping AK-47s, dropping pistols, grenades, prefabricated IEDs, drugs, cash, with the intent of reviving the terrorist movements both in J&K and the Punjab. This is not a friendly act. We gave them a ceasefire. when they needed it most, when they were trying to take over Afghanistan. We practically facilitated the takeover of Afghanistan by the Taliban by making our eastern front absolutely quiet so that they could move troops out at leisure and sort out Afghanistan. I thought it was geostrategically rather short-sighted. But now that we have given them a full opportunity to, see if they would be interested in peace, their economy is collapsing, sinking.
Right.
It is going to be flushed down the tube of history. The way it is going, the ethnic fault lines are most exacerbated, and now the political turmoil. Frankly, the situation is ideal, and I don't think Pakistan should be too sanguine that this is just political rhetoric for the elections. It would be unwise for Pakistan to do that. That's all I can state.
Okay. Well, we'll examine the capacities that are there for us to execute this in just a few moments, and I'll come back to you, General Saab. Let me go across to Maroof Raza. Maroof, is there diplomatic space for this kind of, and many people would describe this as adventurism. We've seen what has happened with Russia vis-a-vis the Donbass areas of Ukraine, etc., which it claims as its own. How does something like this play out in the world if India were to execute this plan?
Rahul, you've used the right word, adventurism. I kind of go along with that for the following reasons. Firstly, it's well known, General Bakshi will agree with me on this, that mountains eat up troops. We are already stretched with our deployment in Northern Command, whether it is on the LAC versus China, whether it is in the Siachen Kargil sector on the LOC and the AGPL, whether on the LOC facing Muzaffarabad and those areas. So, and in the valley, of course, huge number of troops are deployed. General Bakshi is an experienced hand. He will agree with me that where do we build up the capacities to launch these kind of military operations purely because we feel this will go down well with our public. Because, as I had said on many occasions, what we have, what we are in possession of, we are in any case stretched to control that and to give it our full attention. Secondly, normal military operations of attack require you to have at least a 3-to-1 superiority with a lot of firepower to be able to capture an objective. A military objective is like a hillock or a vital ground or whatever else. So the scale goes up. So if a battalion is holding it, then a brigade level attack goes in. If a brigade is holding it, then at least a division. Here in the case of mountains, my understanding, and I've got a little bit of understanding of these issues, having examined it over many years, both in the army and academically, that we don't have the troop levels that we would require to make a very, what one would call a dramatic push to capture Gilgit, Skardu and those areas. General Sundarji had suggested that as an idea for his brass tacks and beyond operations. Some of it has been spelt out long ago in a book by Ravi Rikki, 1984, The Fourth Round. And at that time, this was an operational model that was being considered, but it never happened for a variety of political reasons. Now, while Rajnath Singh ji has his rights as defense minister to ring the alarm bells for Pakistan, and General Bakshi has said what a precarious position Pakistan is in now. But I would like to add with respect that Pakistan may be politically in turmoil, but the army is still pretty much capable of holding its own in a defensive scenario if it has to hold on to territory, which it got because of British perfidy and the British plans in 47. And now that territory is a conjunction between China's steady inroads into what we call northern areas or POK come northern areas, and the nexus between Pak army and Chinese army. The Chinese have invested in those areas at least $26 billion in 4, if not 5 dams. and they are going to invest more because water is an essence of China's strategy for global dominance, because they're being denied now the microchips because of the CHIPS Act by the US, etc. Prime Minister Vajpayee, in his wisdom, a man who was a man of few words, did say to the service chiefs during the Kargil conflict that do not cross the Niyantran Rekha, the line of control. And Musharraf went in Kargil to defy the sanctity of the line of control. And because he went in and because we behaved responsibly and we stuck to the line of control got sanctified. Now you will have world opinion going against you, that why are you, when Mr. Modi himself has said this is not an age of expansionism, when he told the Chinese that when they moved into the LAC areas,
yes,
and this is not an age of conflict. So why are you looking at going in for a conflict? Do you have that much of extra resources? Wars cost money. And basic calculation is about 5,000 crores a week that we are looking at, maybe upwards. Do you think this operation is going to finish in 3 days? Sundarji thought that he could finish off Sri Lanka's problems in 3 days. We got stuck there for almost 2 years. So military operations are expensive. Military operations have the knack of escalating out of control whatever wargaming you were going to put in. And my last point is, it is not the remit or the brief of 15 Corps Commander, the Chinar Corps Commander, to talk about what is going to happen in the northern areas, because his Corps' brief now is largely the valley and parts of the LOC near Uri. The northern part of the valley, beyond the valley, is part of 14 Corps, which looks after Kargil. And there is a 16 Corps that looks after Jammu, Rajouri, Poonch. And there is a Northern Army Commander. And there is an Army Chief who has to echo the views of the Raksha Mantri. And if our generals at this stage do not caution our political leadership that rhetoric is one thing, reality is something else, we will end up having a situation like 1962, when our generals happily stood aside and let the establishment in Delhi of Krishna Menon, Bholanath Malik, and some other cronies, including Monty Pallit and others, make a hash of the operations against the Chinese, because the commanders on the ground gave away the responsibility. And later they said, Bhogi Sen was asked, Eastern Army Commander, why didn't you comment? Why didn't you intervene? Why didn't you advise the government? He says nobody was listening. So are we going into the same cycle of nobody was listening? We have done things which are reminiscent of 62. We have published maps again of our territories, which upset the Chinese then. We have been extending our relationship with the US, which is a good thing, but it's getting the Chinese ante up. So there are things that are happening. Are we looking at Deja Vu 62?
Okay.
Is 22 going to be 62?
Let's take it one at a time. Now, let me bring in Sushant Sareen before I bring in General Bakshi again. Sushant Sareen, you know Pakistan like the back of your hand. How elemental, central is POK to Pak's integrity as a state and its identity overall? How stable is Pakistan's grip on this particular area, especially the Gilgit, the northern territories that they were once referred to? A little background on this area for our viewers.
Rahul, I think the Pakistanis have they have a vice-like grip over this entire region. There is no real political freedoms in either of the two regions, and the military establishment pretty much calls the shots. Let's also not forget that one of the pillars, if you will, whether we agree with it or not, of Pakistan's existence is, their fight for Kashmir, or for what they call liberation of Kashmir. But I think, of course, that's a misnomer. But I don't want to get into that debate right now. So, yes, if we are going to carry out any operations in POK, whether it's in Gilgit-Baltistan or the Mirpur, Muzaffarabad belt, what we now call POJK, it is a declaration of war. Now, this is a declaration of war, which is not going to be a limited war. This is going to be an all-out war under a nuclear umbrella. So I think you cannot adopt a very cavalier approach and say that we'll go in and fight a war like this. Number one. Number two, please, I think Maroof did good to talk about what the Chinese are trying to do in that region. We don't agree with it. We will question it. We will never accept it. But it is one thing to do all of that. It is quite another to fight a war out there at this point in time, because what that will effectively mean is that you will actually be looking at a two-front situation, a very active two-front situation. Now, no general in any army, regardless of whether it's a superpower or it's a middling power or it's a small power, ever wants to fight on two fronts simultaneously. It is one thing to say that we are ready for a two-front war, but that is effectively what you are saying is that it will be a defensive war. It is not that you are going to go in on the offensive to, take on both China and Pakistan and defeat them. It's stupid to even talk on those lines. What General Ojla was doing, this is something which I think the military officers need to work out. He was asked a question which in a sense is a trick question. If a journalist asks a serving general, are you ready for a war like this? What is he going to say? Is he going to say, no, I'm not? He's going to say, yeah, we are ready. We'll wait for the orders of the government. That is what he said. What did the Raksha Mantri say? I think it was what the Raksha Mantri is trying to do is one, rattle the cage. Not because there's some domestic political dividend going to come out of it, but he's rattling the cage. And I'll tell you why. I think you mentioned something in your opening statement that for the last few years, we've been talking about this. And that is a change from the past. In the past, what used to happen was that the Pakistanis kept talking about and kept threatening to wrest Kashmir from India's hold. And we were, always, in a sense, seen to be on the defensive. And very often, I remember in many of our interactions with the Pakistanis, we would tell the Pakistanis that beware of the day when the Indians start talking about wresting POK from you. I think we have reached that stage where we are now talking about it. We are rattling the cage. The Pakistanis are now afraid that we might do something like this. But will we? Because look, Rahul, let's face it, the Raksha Mantri's remarks, in and of itself, there's nothing wrong in it. But if you look at it in the larger context, they are incongruent to what the Prime Minister told the Russian president, that this is not an era of war. Now, you can't be doing counseling the Russians on one thing and then going ahead and doing something quite opposite in your own backyard. More importantly, Rahul, I think it's not that we are giving up our claims on POK. Certainly not. But I think we need to improve and enhance our national comprehensive power. Wars, the Russians thought that they will go and just sweep into Ukraine and the Ukrainian government will fall and, it'll fall like a ripe apple in their hands. And I know of many people who are saying that within 10 days, the Russians will occupy Ukraine. Right? It hasn't happened. Wars have a very funny business of going horribly wrong. So you should not fight a war which you have not won already. What happened in the 1971 war was that you had already won the war when you started fighting the war. And I think it is very important to enhance comprehensive national power. We have a lot of problems in our own country, despite the fact that we are rising. But to ignore the multitude of problems that we have in our own country and to engage in, I think, what you also said and what Maroof also agreed, in what is nothing but an act of pure adventurism at this stage, I think would be a more than a Himalayan blunder. That does not mean that we keep quiet about it. That does not mean that we do not show that we have the prowess. But it is one thing to show the prowess and keep the enemy on the defensive. It is quite another to start exercising that prowess because you don't know how that will ultimately work out. And then the cost, not just to the enemy's economy. That, of course, look, they are a basket case anyways. But what happens to your own economy? You have your very serious challenges ahead. The world is in a flux. Do you want to do something at this point of time? There will be a time. For all you know, you might well, and again, I'm perhaps exaggerating, perhaps I'm going to an extreme, but you might very well be seeing the unraveling on the Pakistani state at this point in time. If supposing something like this was to happen, then yes, then you walk in, you take over the areas which you claim to be your own. But to actually initiate a warfare in this regard, under a nuclear environment, with a two-front situation, I think would be a folly which is best avoided.
Okay, let me bring in General Bakshi on this. General Bakshi, look, we are assuming that the defense minister and the GOC is talking about a full-blooded invasion. I mean, you know, wars need money. Pakistan is broke. Pakistan is today more politically divided than it's ever been. Pakistan is distracted by Afghanistan, bled by a Baloch insurgency, has no ally except China, which is also innately, some people say, pragmatic. Given all of these, General Bakshi, let me ask you this. Given all of these circumstances, have we therefore reconciled ourselves, despite all these advantages that are staring back at us, reconciled ourselves to a status quo?
Look, there was a phase in Indian polity when it was being said that, yes, let us freeze the line of control as the physical border. And this was being talked immediately in the aftermath of the 71 war. Now, lately, we have unfrozen the situation. There was a lot of ambiguity in the Indian stand, push us a bit more and sky is the limit, Asman, sky is the limit, we'll give our pucho to, etc., etc. That phase is all over with the removal of 370. And, you know, we've sent an unambiguous signal that, look, J&K is not negotiable. All that has to be settled is POK, Gilgit-Baltistan. I think that's a very good step forward. Now, when you talk of the ability to carry it out militarily, I'm afraid you are making me walk on eggshells, because as a general officer, I would not like to speculate too much about our capability or otherwise. There are, you know, what Maroof has said stands to reason. I hope we all remember that in the last 2 years of COVID, we stopped all recruitment. 60,000 men a year go out every year. And so we are about 150,000 to 2 lakh troops short in the Indian Army, right? Now we've opened up recruitment of Agniveers, which are only going to be 46,000 Agniveers. So, you know, if you really want to do something, the first step that I would look for is a quick speeding up of getting manpower. Otherwise, like Russia, we would start the conflict and then start mobilizing. Not the best of strategies. You are finding the tremendous, because of Putin's refusal to mobilize manpower. You know, in this country, we have a major manpower versus equipment debate. And there are a lot of generals, my colleagues, who felt, oh, you know, manpower is useless. We need to shed flab. We need to shed manpower and buy more weapons. Is Russia short of weapons? No. Yet, because of the shortage of manpower, they have been hit hard. So there are clear lessons for us there. But I would still say that sometimes war is the domain of risk. You see, if you go back to the initial operations of the Second World War, when Hitler's generals all told him, no, you can't go, but because of, you know, the blitzkrieg tactics, he was able to bluff his way through and do limited things we can do. Let me be, I mean, well, I have been there on the ground. I can't talk much more than this. Limited things you can do, but if somebody says that get us the whole of POK, well, we will have to prepare. We'll have to get us Air Force up to 45 squadrons. We'll have to get the medium artillery induction speeded up. There are lots of things which are there. Limited you could do. I will leave it at that. Okay. Because I'm sorry, because this is cutting too close to the bone.
I get it.
So much as I would like to, like to join debate, I think we'll have to do it privately.
Okay. So I have about 3 minutes on the show. Maroof, very quickly coming to you. Are we then saying that while we can speak to the political galleries, etc., really this dream of an Akhand Bharat that involves reclaiming POK in its entirety is now perhaps just a dream?
Yeah. For the moment, yes. And I'll tell you why. You know, historically, and students of international relations are taught that there are two things that get societies together and get you to follow your leader. One is the possibility of war and victory or an enemy invasion, and the other is economic growth. Now, there are conflicting reports about how well our economy is doing. So the political establishment doesn't feel it's entirely wrong to raise this issue. But General Bakshi has also said the same thing which I was saying, but in his inimitable manner, that, there are ways in which you can put pressure on your adversary. Today, we are talking of hybrid wars. Today, we are talking of intensifying our campaign to do away with all the cancer that is within J&K, and all the border areas need development. There's money required for that. Are you going to spend that money in a futile military campaign? And what is the POK northern area going to give you? Some set of gold mines? No. It is another baggage that you have with us, with a population that has grown up to hate India. And despite they hate the Pakistan army, they're not entirely in love with us. I've seen historical evidence. So you have a massive challenge there in trying to win over the population, win over the thing, develop the territory, and be prepared for China launching a double-pronged attack on you, because China's investments are linked there.
Okay, 30 seconds then. 30 seconds, Sushant Sareen. Just sum this up. What are the three takeaways from this? Rajnath's statement, the GOC's statement. What are we to make of all of this?
I think the three takeaways for me are: number one, we are no longer in the mood to say that, okay, LOC will be the international border.
Okay.
We are now saying that the only way Jammu and Kashmir is going to be resolved is if the entire undivided state becomes a part of India. We are rattling the cage by saying that, yes, we are going to be ready for a war, but I don't think we are going to fight one just yet. But we are going to prepare as we should. Number three, and I think very importantly, Maroof did mention it in his latest intervention, and let me just add to it. When you fight these kind of wars, which in a manner of speaking are irredentist wars, I think what is very important is that you prepare the ground. Prepare the ground not only in your own country, but you prepare the ground in the area which you wish to reclaim. Which means that you have to make a lot of investment in that area, not in terms of money or other things, but in terms of changing the mindset of people out there so that they start looking to becoming a part of India rather than seeing India as some kind of an ogre for which they need to either sleep in the bed with the Pakistanis or with the Chinese. So I think there are multiple things that we will continue to do. The dream is certainly not dead. The dream will remain alive. The dream will remain alive until it is realized.
Okay.
But it will not be realized in the next 6 months, 1 year, 10 years, 15 years. It might take much longer than that. It could happen in the next 2 years as well. It could happen maybe 2 months from now. If Imran Khan has his way, and I really wish Imran Khan was to come back to power in Pakistan, then, we will get a lot of things coming our way.
Okay.
Then maybe, the dream will be fulfilled much earlier.
Okay.
But if that doesn't happen, then we'll bide our time and we will fulfill our dream.
India is going nowhere. Okay. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you for this very enlightening conversation. I think you couldn't have got better perspective on this, viewers, than the three gentlemen. Thank you very much.